Hi, I'm Big Bear, and welcome to Brown Bear Wargaming. Run VT. So today's video is all about challenging yourself by entering some painting competitions. Now whether these are online painting competitions or in store or with friends, whatever it might be, it's always good to challenge yourself. So here's a couple of challenges that I've recently taken part in, and I thought I'd just show you what models I've painted, how I've gone through it, and reasons why I've entered these competitions. Over to you, Big Bear.
So first up, I grabbed hold of this character called Baldras. He's from Lion Tower Miniatures, and he came provided as a 3D resin model. You can buy the STL file from the Lion Tower Miniatures as well. So big up to them, and if you follow a link in the description down below, you'll get 10% off. Bonus! Now the first thing I wanted to do was create an epic base. This is going to be a centerpiece model for this painting competition, and I thought that that's what it needed. So I collected this candle, that's a little battery operated one, made a little slit in the bottom of the cheese pot so that we could turn it on and off, and then we went to our trusty old cork. The cork's really handy because you can break it up into smaller pieces and build up the layers. I didn't really want to be able to see the white of the candle, but I did want to see the flame, so it was important to try and build the layers carefully around it all to create a little bit of texture as well. Now the glue that I opted to do this was super glue. I wanted a quick and easy glue that was going to dry quickly. Any other glue, to be fair, would have done, but the whole point of this for me was nice and quick. Now, I did previously glue Baldras onto his MDF base that he came with. However, I did decide that actually to make this model look a bit more impressive, I don't want him to come off. What I would say is super glue and MDF sticks really well. So please take your care. Try not to use a big sharp knife like I've used. I ended up going for the clippers to try and break it off, which probably wasn't ideal, but hey ho, needs must. A couple of little repairs, again using the super glue, and Baldras was good as new, ready to mount on top of this little mountain. Next up was priming, so a little bit of masking tape to cover the flame was important, and then we could pick that out so we could still see the flame underneath through all that. Hopefully, yes, there we go, it still works. So next up we needed to think about what we were going to do on this actual base. So I started off with a little bit of PVA glue so that I could attach a little bit of different types of ballast and sand and gravel and things like that just around it, try and make it a bit more realistic, like it was some sort of volcano. And now while that's drying, I thought we'd go for the good old slap chop method. So a couple of different greys and whites, building up the layers very slowly, just so we can really pick out those fine details on this wonderful model. And then we thought we'd do the same on the base. That was dry, so we started off with a little bit of red, then we started to go through a little bit of some yellows, and then we did again eventually a little bit of orange as well, trying to build it up. I then had the idea to try and use the Citadel paint Modern Earth, because this is like a crackle paint, so when it dries it cracks, and my idea was that I would kind of slop this on quite a bit, let it dry, and then those bright reds and oranges and yellows would crackle through. However, what I didn't think about was the cork actually soaking up the paint, and the only way this really works, this crackle paint, is if you put it on really thick. So lesson learnt there. Now, while that's drying, back to Baldras. So for this, because of the speed paint method that I was trying to use with the slap chop, I opted for the Army Painter speed paints. These paints are very similar to the Citadel contrast paints. They're quite watery down, but they have a good pigment on them, and I tell you what, they are absolutely fantastic. I particularly like this dark red colour. It's so good, and it picks out all those details really nicely. You just have to be careful that you don't put too much paint on so that it just leaves a little bit of a sloppy mess, but on this model it was absolutely spot on, so doing this entire model just with speed paints. Again, while Baldras is drying, let's give it a bit of a rim job all the way around. I like black, so there we go. This is Baldras on top of his volcano. I opted for a bit of green oozing down. It was a bit different. It didn't go down particularly well in the painting challenge on the comments, but hey, I liked it. It was something different. Here we go, Baldras. One of the comments at the end was that I didn't have a photograph of Baldras with the flight flickering, so here you go, Kev, just for you.
Big thanks to Kev over at the Hobby Corner for putting on the KFC challenge. Kev's fantastic challenge every month. It's a great competition to be part of. Have a look in the comments down below, see if you can find the link to his Discord, so you can find out more about the KFC challenge, and I'd love to see what you guys come up with to be part of any in the future. Next up was a bit of a more local challenge, and this one was at the local Rippon Gaming Club that I attend every now and then, and that I'm very active with on their WhatsApp groups as well.
Now this challenge was a little bit different. This challenge was all about using a bog standard, easy to build Stormcast model that you would usually get in your local Games Workshop store as one of the free models that you want to test out. And I decided for this one I was going to try and do something a little bit different. At ChillCon 2023, you may recall that I won the painting challenge using my Jackson Pollock Marine. So I decided to use the same sort of effect. I went for a couple of different primary colours and a few extras, put it on quite thick onto a brush and tried applying it, using a bit of a splashing technique. It probably works better with a toothbrush, but I didn't have one to hand, so I just used a couple of different brushes to test out what would work. Little small detail brush wasn't great, this much thicker one, perfect. That's the one for the job. So after priming my model just in a black matte spray, I then had the nervy part where I was going through colour by colour and just flicking it on with my finger. Just think carefully about the order that you want to apply the paints on in this technique. I would actually quite like to see an entire squad painting in this way. You're not going to get them exactly the same, but it would be really interesting. You can see obviously that I do have a board behind to catch all the splatter paint, because similar to using an airbrush, this is going to go absolutely everywhere. Now, although all the base colours are done in the splatter technique, I did want to pick out some more of the details. This is a Stormcast champion after all, so we picked out a couple of details in this Dragon's Gold by Tooth and Coats range. This is a really nice paint. I do really like this one. You can't have gold without a little bit of silver, because obviously his big spear here is going to have a bit of silver on as well, so it's important that we get those details too. Next up on your model, whether it's for the tabletop or for a competition, is the base. So I started off with a little bit of a dry brush on obviously this ready-made base that we've got here, and I ummed and ahed as to what it is I actually wanted to achieve on this. Of course, I wanted the base to try and stand out, so what I decided to do was go back to that lava style effect I used on Baldras earlier, and using what practice I'd had to try and make this better. I started with a couple of different layers of the same sorts of paints, the reds, the oranges and the yellows, and blobbing them on relatively thick, but so it would still give a nice effect even if the crackle paint didn't work or if I'd run out. Whilst that was drying, a bit of the dark wood coloured speed paint just for all the wooden areas was always a bit of a bonus, just to allow that base to dry fully. Now, because this is a one-off model, you are going to look at it very differently. You're not going to be painting a squad full of these guys. So I started to try and mix it up and add a few different features to this model. So the white here for the half and half shield, just to pick out some of the details as well on his shoulder pads as well. It just made it a little bit different. Now, here's something new I wanted to try. This is a paint called Nailac Oxide. Now, what you do with this is it's quite a watery paint, but you kind of slap it on. Then you dry brush a little bit of it off, and it leaves a really good oxidized colour on the gold areas. I'm really, really impressed, and it's something I definitely recommend you have a go at. Of course, that's not what I've done on the eyes. On the eyes, I've used a green speed paint, so yeah, sorry about that. And we're going back to the base, so getting out those browns again. I've already got it out, so let's use a little bit more and let's finish off this stone effect colour. While the base is drying, let's whip out that good old null oil, slop it on all over, just so we can really get into those recesses. And now we're going back to this modern earth. This time I did learn from my mistakes and I did put it on incredibly thick. Please make sure that the base is fully dry before you do this, or you'll end up with a big sloppy mess. Then once all that's dry, obviously you've got to rim your base. I've gone for the black here just to tidy it up nicely, and here is my finished Stormcast Eternal model with the Jackson Pollock effect, slap pebble dash effect, whatever you want to call it. And look at that crackle base too, it really did work.
Big thanks to Nathan and everyone at the Ripon Wargaming Club for letting me be part of your community and entering competitions and things like that. Really enjoyed this one.
And for some daft reason, I actually won the most eccentric painting model in the competition. And here was my prize. It was a really nice set of colour shift paints by Green Stuffed World. So thank you very much, guys. Don't really know how I won that, but thank you all the same.
So what do you think? Have you entered any painting competitions yourself? If so, how did you get on? How did you find the process? I, for one, found it a really enjoyable experience. It's a chance to maybe paint something a little bit different, or maybe in a bit of a different style to what you would normally paint as well. So why not try it for yourself? Give it a go, enter an online painting competition, enter one in your local hobby store, or your local group, wherever that might be. Big thanks to everyone that's recently subscribed. We've had a bit of a surge in subscribers lately, so a big thank you very much for doing that. Whether you've been watching shorts or these longer videos, following us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, really appreciate all your support. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below with any painting competitions you've been part of. And the big one I'd really like you to try and start thinking about is for ChillCon 2025. At ChillCon 2025, there'll be a wide range of different categories that you can be part of, and I'd love to see if you can challenge yourself to try and get an entry into ChillCon 2025 whenever you attend. Don't worry about being the best painter or trying to win, it's all about challenging yourself as a hobbyist. Anyway, thanks very much for listening to me waffle on about my various different painting challenges I've been part of over the last couple of months. I've been Big Bear, happy gaming.